He was once the voice of a young, rising nation, and by the end, he could barely remember its name. A man who gave everything, his mind, his spirit, his health, to the country he helped create. He dreamed of unity, fought for justice, and led Australia through its infancy. But the cost of building a nation was forgetting he had done so. This is not just the story of a prime minister. It is the story of Alfred Deakin, the forgotten father of federation. Alfred Deakin was a key architect of the Australian Federation and served 3 terms as the country's prime minister. Known for his intellectual depth, literary flair, and spiritual conviction, Deakin played a central role in shaping modern Australia, advocating for national unity, progressive legislation, and the expansion of federal institutions. Born on August 3, 1856 in Fitzroy, Melbourne, Alfred Deakin was the second child of English immigrants William and Sarah Deakin. He was educated at Melbourne Grammar School and later at the University of Melbourne, where he studied law. However, Deakin's interests extended far beyond legal studies. As a young man, he was deeply involved in spiritualism and theosophy, interests that would influence his private reflections throughout his life. Deakin entered Victorian colonial politics in 1879, when he was elected to the Legislative Assembly as the member for West Bourke. By the mid-1880s, he had made a name for himself as a capable orator and reformist. He held several ministerial positions in the Victorian government, including Minister for Public Works and Minister for Water Supply, where he played a significant role in developing irrigation schemes in northern Victoria. A staunch advocate of federation, Deakin was instrumental in the constitutional conventions that led to the formation of the Commonwealth of Australia in 1901. He served as Attorney General in the first federal government under Edmund Barton. His command of policy detail and powerful advocacy earned him widespread respect and positioned him as Barton's natural successor. Deakin became Australia's second Prime Minister in September 1903, following Barton's retirement. His first term was short-lived due to the fragmented nature of the federal parliament, and he resigned in April 1904 after losing the support of the Labour Party. Returning to power in July 1905 with Labour support, Deakin's second term was marked by legislative activity and institution building. His government established the High Court of Australia, the Bureau of Census and Statistics, and passed the Papua Act 1905, placing British New Guinea under Australian administration. He also advocated for the expansion of the public service and oversaw the extension of the Australian military. Deakin promoted Australian nationhood with confidence, expressing a belief in Australia's destiny and the responsibilities that came with it. He successfully negotiated the 1907 visit of the US Great White Fleet to Australia, a symbolic gesture that highlighted growing ties between the two countries. Deakin's third and final term as Prime Minister began after the formation of the fusion with Joseph Cook's Conservative Free Trade Party, creating the Commonwealth Liberal Party. This coalition provided Deakin with a parliamentary majority, allowing him to implement fiscal reforms and centralize federal power. However, this merger alienated many of his previous progressive supporters, including members of the Labour Party and radical liberals, who saw it as a betrayal. After the 1913 election, Deakin declined an offer from Prime Minister Joseph Cook to chair the Interstate Commission. In 1914, during the early months of World War I, he chaired a Royal Commission on Food Supply. His last major public engagement was in 1915, when he led the Australian delegation to the Panama Pacific International Exposition in San Francisco, a ceremonial role that he accepted from both Cook and later Prime Minister Andrew Fisher. However, political interference led Deakin to cut the visit short and return to Australia. Deakin's later years were marked by the onset of a degenerative neurological illness, likely some form of dementia, which caused significant memory loss and cognitive decline. He documented his condition in his diaries with honesty and despair, noting that stepping away from politics seemed to hasten his memory's deterioration. Medical diagnoses at the time included hyperneurasthenia, though modern scholars have speculated conditions such as vascular dementia or Alzheimer's disease. By late 1915, Deakin could no longer retain new information for more than a few hours. In 1916, he and his wife Patty traveled to England and the United States in search of medical advice and to visit their daughter Vera in London. They returned in 1917, and Deakin withdrew from public life, living quietly at his South Yarra home. Alfred Deakin died on the 7th of October 1919 at the age of 63. His official cause of death was meningoencephalitis. He was granted a state funeral and interred at St Kilda Cemetery alongside his parents. His wife Patty was later buried beside him after her death in 1934. Deakin was a lifelong writer and journalist. As a young man, he anonymously published a 5-act play titled Quentin Massis, which he later attempted to destroy. However, copies survived and were republished in 1940 as an example of early Australian verse. He contributed anonymous political commentary to the London Morning Post, even during his time as Prime Minister. His historical account of the Federation movement, The Federal Story, was published posthumously in 1944. His reflections on Victorian politics were released as The Crisis in Victorian Politics in 1957, and a collection of his political writings appeared as Federated Australia in 1968. Deakin maintained a deep and private spirituality throughout his life. Initially active in the Theosophical Society, he later joined the Australian Church, led by Charles Strong. He was profoundly influenced by religious mysticism, scriptural writings, and contemplative prayer. His diaries reveal a man of great inner conflict, who felt both inspired by and unworthy of the spiritual mission he believed he had been called to fulfill. Deakin's daughter, Vera, later recalled in a 1960 ABC radio interview that her father read from the Bible and spiritual works every Sunday and believed himself to be an instrument of divine will. He described Christ's life as the only revelation required and often prayed for guidance to serve his country with truth, light, and justice. Alfred Deakin was widely admired in his lifetime, affectionately nicknamed Affable Alfred by peers and the press. Despite political rivalries, especially after the controversial fusion with Conservatives, he maintained a reputation for integrity, intellect, and vision. He's considered a founding father of the Australian nation and is regarded as a philosophical predecessor to the modern Liberal Party of Australia. Deakin was dramatised in the 1951 play Tether a Dragon by Kylie Tennant. A literary prize, the Alfred Deakin Prize for an essay advancing public debate, was created in his honour, though it is now defunct. Deakin was unusual among his contemporaries in repeatedly refusing personal honours. He declined a knighthood in 1887 and turned down 3 separate offers to join the British Privy Council. He also refused honorary degrees from Oxford and Cambridge, believing they should be based solely on academic merit. However, he accepted honours that he felt benefited Australian interests or whose rejection might cause offence. In 1907, he was made an honorary freeman of London and Edinburgh and an honorary bencher of Gray's Inn. The only honorary degree he accepted was from the University of California in 1915 during his trip to the Panama Pacific Exposition. Many institutions and places have been named in Alfred Deakin's honour. These include Deakin University in Melbourne, Deakin High School in Canberra, and Deakin Hall at Monash University. The suburb of Deakin in Canberra and the Federal Division of Deakin are also named after him. In 1969, Australia Post issued a postage stamp bearing his likeness.